Thank you for joining us for the East Mediterranean Business Culture Alliance's A Century of Service to America and Hellenism. My name is Luke Katsos, EMBCA's president, and I will be moderating today's panel. Our distinguished panel includes Alec, Economakis, the Supreme President, Sons of Pericles, Nick Theodore, former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina and past Supreme President of the Sons, and attorney and past Supreme President of the Sons, Paul Pavlakos. The Sons of Pericles is a Hellenic youth organization established in the United States in 1926, founded on principles of service, brotherhood, patriotism, and the preservation of Hellenism. As the junior order of the Hellenic Educational Progressive Association, the Sons of Pericles has grown into a leadership incubator for young Americans of Hellenic descent and an enduring link between the past and future of the Hellenic diaspora. Its impact spans nearly a century, with notable contributions to civic life, philanthropy, and cultural preservation, including its symbolic relationship to the historic American 122nd Greek Battalion, which adds a profound military and patriotic dimension to its legacy. The organization was founded in Manchester, New Hampshire, with the support of members from the local AHEPA chapter. Recognizing the need to cultivate leadership among Hellenic Americans, they envisioned a youth club that would mirror the values of AHEPA: love for Hellenism, education, civic duty, and American patriotism, and named after Pericles, the Athenian statesman whose leadership marked the golden age of Athens. What began as a local effort soon attracted interest nationwide, and by 1928, the Sons of Pericles had been officially recognized by AHEPA's Supreme Lodge. Chapters began forming in the United States and Canada, and more recently in Greece, where young men were given opportunities to develop leadership skills and contribute to their communities through volunteerism and cultural education. From its inception, the Sons of Pericles offered a framework for developing as civic-minded individuals while staying rooted in their identity. Its motto, leadership through service, captured the dual emphasis on character development and community involvement. Chapters hosted educational seminars, sponsored Hellenic Independence Day events, supported local churches, organized sports tournaments, and initiated philanthropic drives. The Sons also worked closely with their sister organization, the Maids of Athena, founded in 1930, often partnering for events and community projects. This collaboration fostered lifelong friendships and a sense of shared vision within the community. Cultural preservation has always been the core of the Sons, and through events celebrating Hellenic music, dance, food, and history, the organization has helped countless youth maintain a deep connection, again, with their Hellenic heritage. In today's digital age, the organization has adapted with online programming, virtual conferences, and nationwide outreach efforts. But the heart of the Sons of Pericles remains the same: building character through service, cultivating leadership, and fostering an unbroken chain of Hellenic identity from one generation to another. The Sons of Pericles is far more than a youth club. It is a living monument to the enduring values of Hellenism in the diaspora, rooted in the traditions of ancient Greece and shaped by the immigrant experience in America. The organization stands as a testament to the power of cultural pride. As new generations of Greek Americans rise, the Sons of Pericles offers a leadership that honors the past while preparing for the future. Today, we are honored and we'll be discussing the legacy of the continuing history of this great youth organization on its upcoming anniversary in February of 2026. Professor Emeritus of History at Haverford College, Alexander Kitroeff, was scheduled to be a panelist today, but he's suffering from an inflammation of the lungs. But he did want me to mention that when the Sons of Pericles were founded in 1926, as the official junior order of AHEPA. It was during a time when AHEPA was actively promoting the shared values and philosophical parallels between ancient Hellenism and Americanism. The name Sons of Pericles, per Professor Kitroeff, was deliberately chosen to evoke the spirit of classical Athenian democracy, civic duty, and enlightening leadership embodied by Pericles himself, while aligning with American ideals of liberty, service, and patriotic responsibility. The organization aimed to cultivate these values in young men of Hellenic descent, preparing them to become active contributors to both American society and the preservation of their own heritage, both American and Hellenic. Costa, if you can, I will just do the couple of images that were sent to me by Professor Kitroeff. This is one of them. This was the cover of the annual ball that they had in one of their chapters. And Costa, also the second one, the Periclean magazine, which had come out in this particular case in the 1930s. With that, I'd like to introduce our first panelist. Alec Economakis is the current Supreme President of the Sons of Pericles, a nonprofit philanthropic organization that strives to promote heritage, service, and brotherhood among Hellenes in North America and Greece. Alec is serving his second consecutive term as Supreme President, having served in the Supreme Lodge for 5 total years in other positions. Raised in Washington, D.C., Alec attended high school in the Maryland area prior to moving down to Florida. He graduated from Florida State University with a master's in applied economics and has since been based in Washington, D.C. While in Tallahassee, Alec was initiated into the Order of the Sons of Pericles and has never looked back. His tenure as Supreme Lodge member involved the planning, management, and supervision of social weekends, athletic tournaments, and fundraisers for the Greek community across North America. Through his time on the Supreme Lodge, Alec helped cumulatively raise over $100,000 to reputable national projects, including the Ronald McDonald House, Greek Division of New York, the Children's Miracle Network, the JED Foundation, and many other great causes. Alec's second term has emphasized membership expansion within the Sons of Pericles and the commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the Sons of Pericles through the SOP 100 campaign celebrating the centennial on February the 3rd, 2026. Welcome out, Alec, and thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lou. Thank you for having me. I'm honestly been having so much fun with this second term in the Sons of Pericles. For context, as I approach the end of this year, I have been scouring the internet, books, yearbooks, and minutes just to uncover all this history about the Sons of Pericles. And every single page that I turn is always illuminating. And in the process, I've met some amazing past Supreme Presidents who've once been in the same shoes as me, just as Nick Theodore right here. Among this whole tenure as a Son of Pericles, I think the most important aspect that I've learned is not only civic responsibility, but the brotherhood aspect with the people that you meet across the country. It frankly is very humbling to be able to find people of similar connections or people from the same area where you were from in Greece, where your descendants grew up, and be able to reconnect with them at the drop of a hat. Throughout these book searches and internet searches and random cold calls, which I have had, I've found out so many amazing things that the Sons have done. Just for starters, the Sons had always been fundraising for Cooley's anemia, for example, which is a disease that tends to affect Mediterranean people. Additionally, the Sturgios Malonis Scholarship Fund, which was there to raise money for Greek Americans, notably in the Sons, to help pursue educational progression, with which in prior generations, when people began in the Sons, it was not very likely that many people did get a college education, and those Greek Americans, whether first generation or onward, were expected to attain a higher degree throughout their collegiate experience. Frankly, I've been incredibly happy to learn about so many stories, so many achievements that the Sons of Pericles have come across, and I'm honestly more honored than anything to just be a part of the whole history.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alec. Our next panelist is someone that many of you know. He's very well known, in particular in the state of South Carolina, and that's Nick Theodore. Nick was born in Greenville, South Carolina, to Andrew and Lula Theodore, Greek immigrants, the youngest of 5 children. Growing up, he was involved with the St. George Greek Orthodox Cathedral community in Greenville and was a past supreme president of the Sons of Pericles from 1953 to 1954. He attended the University of Georgia and graduated in 1952 from Furman University with a bachelor's degree in business. He spent a total of 24 years serving in the South Carolina state legislature before being elected in 1986 to the office of lieutenant governor. He has served 2 full terms in that post under Governor Carroll Campbell. In discussions, Nick partially credits his time to the Sons of Pericles as his inspiration to begin a political career. Nick is also an archon of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. Welcome, Nick, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Lou. I appreciate that. It's my pleasure to be with all of you today and speak about something that's very close to my heart, the Sons of Pericles. I learned about the Sons of Pericles from my older brother, who was about 9 years older. And so when he was about 19 and I was 10, he was wrapped up in this thing called the Sons of Pericles, especially for District 1, which was South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. And those particular states were District 1 because the Order of AHEPA was formed, of course, over 100 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. So my brother John Theodore was the editor of the Periclean Herald, which was the District 1 gossip newspaper that would be distributed to all of the young men in the Order of AHEPA. And about the time he was active in business also, World War II came about. And that, of course, put everything on pause to the extent that, for all practical purposes, we heard very little about the AHEPA family, the sons and maids and the daughters. But the AHEPA itself was very active in patriotic activities. But many of our youth became members, active members in the United States services. And of course, my brother was one of them. He was drafted and he became what they call a 90-day wonder because he went to OCS school. Everything had to be stepped up in time due to the fact that America really was not prepared for a war of worldwide consequence. And so he became a second lieutenant after 90 days in what they call a 90-day wonder. After the war, of course, he came home and immediately by that time, I was about 17, and the Sons of Pericles had basically been idle for that period of time from 91 to 95. Excuse me, not 95, but 41 to 45. And so as time went on, immediately I became a part of the Sons of Pericles. And we had the first post-war basketball tournament in Greenville, South Carolina, my home. And I served as chairman of it, and along with some of my friends, and we had what you might consider just a rip-roaring, total success following World War II, because everyone was ready to once again do what the Greeks call glandi. And we, of course, with the chapters in those states that I mentioned, we moved forward and had an excellent beginning. And with that particular start, I became ultimately a district governor of the District 1. And I looked at the Sons of Pericles as basically what I call a Periclean stepping stone. Because every time I turned around, the particular experiences from the Sons of Pericles were very, very a part of my advancement. And as a Greenville High School senior student, I had not participated in any government activities up until my senior year, and decided I would offer for the senior class president of Greenville High School. And much to my delight, the Periclean stepping stones came into play immediately, and I was successful. Following that, of course, Furman University, by graduation, and I once again found the Periclean stepping stones as I moved forward into an organization of young men called these JCs. It was a outstanding national organization and accomplished so much for the communities that they were from. And in my situation, it was a natural, because the Sons of Pericles, of course, was always appointment to say that it's leadership through service. Was the Sons of Pericles motto, so to speak. And the JCs also said that service to humanity is the best work of life. So it was an automatic connection between those two organizations. And once again, the Periclean stepping stones opened the way for me to become the president of the South Carolina JCs, which had approximately 195 chapters in the state. And of course, Lou, as you mentioned, that was when I found out about Manning, South Carolina, because we had a JC chapter in that area. But once again, I found that my experiences as a Sons of Pericles was very, very incredibly important for my success. And following the JC presidency for the state, I immediately offered, as many other individuals from the JCs, for the State House of Representatives, and later became a state senator, and then ultimately lieutenant governor. But as I look back, it was once again those Periclean stepping stones that got me to those particular places. And that's why I feel so very closely attuned and very benevolent organization that has done so much for me personally and for many other young people around the southern states and other states of the nation. As I look back, I served approximately 30 years in elected office. I had a friend in John Rousakis from Savannah, Georgia, who was an all-state basketball player and also served 22 years as mayor of Savannah. Once again, he attributed a great deal of his success to the EMBCA, Sons of Pericles, as did a judge in Atlanta, a Supreme Court justice in Columbia, South Carolina, and many other young people that were successful as a result of their training in the Sons of Pericles. So once again, we all were benefits of the order of Sons of Pericles, and we owe a great deal to this particular very important message that the AHEPA family has provided for the people of America and other countries.
Thank you so much for that, Nick, because it's very inspiring. And certainly anyone who's listening to this will say, we better join the Sons of Pericles immediately. Thank you so much for that. Our next panelist is Paul Pavlakos. He currently was elected the president, actually, of the AHEPA Delphi 25 chapter, and was a past supreme president of the Sons of Pericles. Paul has been an active leader in the Hellenic community, spearheading cultural, educational, philanthropic, and professional networking initiatives for youth. Paul has also been actively promoting Greek genocide awareness and recognition, and co-chaired the Greece 200 Committee in 2021 to celebrate Greece's bicentennial. Paul is currently co-chair of the SOP 100 Committee to celebrate the Sons of Pericles' 100th anniversary. And in his professional life, Paul is a manager of international tax financial services at KPMG in Manhattan, and providing tax consulting and compliance services to multinational corporations and asset management structures specializing in technology, automation, and building tax planning models. He obtained an LLM in taxation from New York University and a Juris Doctor and a bachelor's in international affairs from Florida State University. Welcome, Paul, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Lou, for having me. And I want to say first, Nick and Alec, it's great to see you both. And I think it's a testament to the Sons of Pericles, really, the connections that you can have with people who you've never lived in the same city as, or gone to the same church with, gone to the same school as, and you still have that very deep related connection because of the shared values that I think the Sons of Pericles has to offer. And so I thought I'd start off a little bit with the discussion from my end on something I actually found this morning in the AHEPA bulletin from 1928. And it was written by then Supreme President of the AHEPA, Dean Alphonse, who was a co-founder of the Delphi AHEPA chapter. And he wrote a little bit about the Sons of Pericles in this AHEPA bulletin. And here he essentially says, the Sons of Pericles embraces the very best that we have in this country. It is the fiber of which the finest American citizenry is made. And then he also goes on to say that the work of the Sons of Pericles is an ever-recurring inspiration to every AHEPan. It is our secret pride, and it unites the boys of Grecian descent in bonds of fraternal love and teaches them to be loyal and valuable citizens of the United States. And those words struck a chord with me because I think it shows that when we started our centennial celebrations and going into the Sons of Pericles, what we wanted to try to cover, it was about showcasing the unbroken network that the Sons has to offer for the last 100 years, the tens of thousands of young men that's helped develop into good citizens, good professionals, good members of their community. And it's built those connections through a common sense of values. And one of those values that became very, very clear was this unparalleled ambition to make a positive difference in their community. It was and it is a group of young men that is trying to do their best with what they have to make a difference in their community, have an impact. And we see that consistently throughout the last 100 years. And even early on, more so, because early on, the age range was even younger for the Sons of Pericles. It was 14 to 18 as it started. And it was actually because of the suspension of World War II, where they started to slowly increase the age range to give the members who lost their years their time back, essentially. And so we started to see an increase in the age range to 23, then soon after 25, and now current day it's 28. But at the end of the day, these are high schoolers, college students, young professionals that are trying to give back. And I wanted to share a little bit of some examples of giving back and some examples of the impact they've had on that community. So the first, of course, just kind of going chronologically, right, was the World War II impact that the Sons of Pericles had. So one of the founders of the Sons of Pericles, Major Peter D. Klanos, was the first Greek American to graduate from West Point. And he ended up becoming the leader of the 122nd Greek Battalion, who, when they were then training in Fort Carson, Colorado, were asked to volunteer for the OSS. Every single person in that battalion volunteered for the OSS. Now, they only selected 200, but everybody in that battalion was more than happy to sacrifice for their country. And we see that throughout the history as well, because even 20 years later, during the Vietnam War, we actually discovered through some of our research that one of our Supreme Presidents actually had to vacate the presidency in the middle of the year because he was drafted for the Vietnam War. So we had an appointment essentially where the Vice President took over and the Supreme President went to serve in Vietnam. Later on in 1985, the Sons of Pericles was responsible for sponsoring the first Greek Special Olympics team to come to Salt Lake City, Utah, and they won 2 gold medals in Utah, and that was partially sponsored by the Sons of Pericles. And we've seen this a lot elsewhere. In 1961, we found out that the Sons put a national project together to be one of the first youth organizations to advocate for the return of the Elgin marbles to Greece, which is something we're, of course, still in discussions with today as a community. And other than those, I mean, there's been philanthropic impacts, of course, multiple sclerosis, Cooley's anemia, Jed Foundation, Ronald McDonald House, Special Olympics, St. Basil's Academy, and a lot of other philanthropic organizations where the Sons over the last 100 years has raised over $1 million really in various philanthropic efforts. And again, it's a testament to the shared value that the Sons have demonstrated to give back to their community with what they have.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for bringing up. Both you and Nick brought up World War II, so I think it's important for the audience to know that that a unique and often overlooked part of the organization's legacy is exactly what you talked about, Paul, and that's the symbolic connection to the American 122nd Greek Battalion, a military unit comprised of Hellenic American volunteers during World War II. The battalion was called 122nd Battalion by Franklin Delano Roosevelt because it was the 122nd anniversary of Greek independence. So that's how it got its name. The battalion was formed in 1943 under the Army and was made up primarily of Hellenic Americans who volunteered to fight Axis powers, particularly in the Mediterranean theater. Many, as you indicated, Paul, of the young men who served in that Greek battalion had been Sons of Pericles members. And many, quite frankly, did join the OSS, did go behind enemy lines. And there are various, actually, books that are written by some of them, which are quite fascinating. And this legacy serves as a powerful example to future generations of Sons, underscoring the organization's commitment not only to Hellenic ideals, but also to the defense and freedom and democratic values within the United States. We're going to open it up now. So, Alec, if you can just unmute yourself. Let's talk about what's happening and what's going to be happening as you prepare for this 100th anniversary that's coming up next year in February. Would you and Paul like to discuss it a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to tee it up. So working closely with Paul, we've kind of had some joint efforts in order to help preserve our past and remember what we had really gone through as the Sons of Pericles, whether it's different generations or different individuals. For example, Nick, Theodore being on this call, we're very gracious to have you always contribute and let us know just how much the Sons mean to you. Well, what we're planning to do is host a celebration as close as possible, I believe January 30th weekend at Manchester, New Hampshire, with the goal of commemorating our past and preserving artifacts of the Sons of Pericles, notably from Manchester, New Hampshire, at a local museum, which will then in turn help fulfill other items in the museum's wish list. We've set a lofty goal of raising $100,000, of which I know plenty of AHEPA chapters, as well as former Sons alumni, have been more than happy to donate to. So, Paul, I know there's always so much more to say with this.
Yeah, happy to add on. So, I mean, I think we've essentially made this a 1.5 long effort. We really kicked this off on the eve of the 99th anniversary. On February 3rd, 2025, we essentially had our kickoff campaign for the centennial. And it started with an introductory trip to Manchester as an initial visit. I was there, with Alec, and another one of our past Supreme Presidents, Greg Verlumis, was with us. And we essentially did an exploratory trip up to Manchester to view some of the venues. We actually were able to get in touch with the Millyard Museum in Manchester. And this is a local community museum. It's not Hellenic, it's for the public community. But there is a long history of immigration into Manchester with the textile mills. And so we were able to connect with them and kind of share what we were looking to do in terms of promoting the Sons of Pericles and overall Hellenism as a way of understanding what the impact was to the general public, not just the Hellenic community. And so we were able to work with them that when we do our now centennial gala weekend on January 30th through February 1st, we'll be opening up a Sons of Pericles exhibit at the Milliard Museum. So part of the $100,000 that we're raising is going towards the opening of this exhibit. It'll go towards museum renovation projects. And this is our way of showcasing all the things that the Sons have done for everybody else, in the general community, not just Hellenes, not just people within AHEPA and the Sons of Pericles. It's a general community impact. And we wanted to showcase that to the public. We'll be continuing outside of the gala weekend to do various other initiatives in terms of preserving this history. We'll be creating commemorative journals. We've digitized a lot of history that we found. So as Alec mentioned very early on, we're going through all of the old yearbooks, all of the old AHEPAs. The passage I read earlier was from the 1928. It's the original 1928 newspaper, which we'll be scanning in and digitizing these records so we can really preserve everything that the Sons has done. And as part of this, what I think we agreed as a committee is that this should be about not only preserving the past, but also using this as motivation for the future, looking back at the history of the Sons of Pericles as an example of what can be done if we all give a little bit. We have articles of some of these Sons of Pericles chapters over the years where they write letters to Greece, to other communities, to other organizations within their community saying, this is the cash we were able to collect. We're donating it to you. It's not much, but it's what we could put together. And you see that throughout the Sons of Pericles, and it's something we want to be an example for the next generation coming in, is that it's not always about making that large positive impact in one swing. It's about everybody giving that 2%, 3%, 5%. It's not always 110% all the time. If everybody gives 5%, we can build a better community that way. And so that's one thing we want definitely the Centennial Committee and the Centennial Campaign to be an example for the younger generation. And we hope to do that. We'll end it finally with July 2026 at the AHEPA Family Convention in Philadelphia. We'll, of course, have something planned for that, but our highlight of the year will definitely be the Centennial Gala in Manchester.
Well, that's exciting. And Nick, tell us a little bit about the Greek community around the time you were growing up and you were a member of the Sons. Were there a lot of Greeks in South Carolina? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, ironically, I'm attempting to revive the archives of St. George Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Greenville, South Carolina. And each one of the areas that I mentioned, Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Spartanburg, and Darlington, all of them started from scratch. Charleston was the first church. Greenville had 3 churches. We started with a 2-story frame house, as most of had meager means to begin with, and built it up from that point on. And today we have a viable Eastern Orthodox state of South Carolina. And as we speak today, we're trying to put it all together. So starting in Greenville, South Carolina, with 11 families, we now have 800 families, and that's a low estimate in the Greenville upper part of the state. The same thing has applied throughout the state. What I've been a little disappointed in is that the Sons have, for various reasons, and were on a pause basis in the South, and my emphasis now with some other individuals that share the same belief that we should revive the Sons of Pericles and get it moving again, because it meant so much to our part of the state and the entire District 1. And we will do that along with Alex Belinas, whose son was installed in New York City when he was visiting there, because we didn't have a chapter in Greenville at the time. We were starting to try to get this the Greenville chapter reorganized along with Spartanburg, and COVID hit us, and we got shot on the ground, particularly at that particular time. But we will now, once again, review and reinstill those efforts, because it means so much to the state of South Carolina and to each one of our individual communities to have a viable Sons of Pericles chapter. Of course, I've always said what you need to do is wherever you find the mazes of Athens, there'll be plenty of Sons of Pericles around. So at the same time, our Maze of Athens chapter is already organized and moving, so we shouldn't have too much difficulty.
Nick, when you were young, were the chapters very large, the Sons of Pericles, when you were young?
Were they very large, you say?
Yeah. In other words, when you were in the Sons of Pericles, were there many chapters, a lot of chapters, a lot of folks?
Well, we had the largest chapter would be Atlanta, Georgia, because you had a greater population. But even the smaller chapters made up their size by their willingness to work and to get the job done, you know. And so, it was amazing that we, following World War II, that the Greenville chapter, which had about 15 members at the time, put on a worldwide famous tournament and did extremely well financially, as well as to build up the athletic prowess of the Sons of Pericles. So we were a good-sized chapter, but some are much larger than others. Today, Greenville, for instance, is much larger than most other cities in the state. So we're in a good position to once again rejuvenate. But even the cities that don't have a large Greek population or a large Sons of Pericles potential can still accomplish so much. And each one of these particular efforts are very important on our part. And once again, the particular leadership through service is something that will benefit not only the communities, but the churches in each one of these respective communities.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. Paul, would you like to tell us and Alec about the boat trip that's happening in about a week and the Sons' participation in that?
Yeah, maybe I'll tee that one up, and then Alec, if you want to come over the top. So this was something we actually planned at first with the Delphi AHEPA chapter. As Lou mentioned, I was honored to be elected president this past Wednesday, so we'll be moving forward in the next year. And of course, one of our goals has always been in Manhattan specifically to grow the Sons of Pericles and grow youth involvement in AHEPA and in the Hellenic community, right? And so in talking to Alec, when we were planning this boat cruise, we decided that this was something that the Delphi chapter has done annually for a very long time. We're bringing it back this year, but we wanted the Sons to be collaborative with it this time. So this will be June 13th, 7 p.m. We'll have 125 people on board, and 40 of those will be Sons and Maids, because this will be co-hosted with their Greeks in New York annual event. And maybe Alec, you can give a little bit on what Greeks in New York is generally, how it usually operates. This is Greeks in New York has been a national Sons of Pericles event for a very, very long time, decades now. And we're very excited as part of the Delphi chapter to be collaborating in our opening event for that Friday night.
Of course, and we're always grateful for the assistance that Delphi and District 6 in general always give to the Sons of Pericles. This predates me and Supreme Lodge tenure that I've had, possibly predates Paul, but we had been going to New York almost annually around the summertime to conduct a basketball tournament, as well as a basketball tournament to help stimulate the effect of, brotherhood and competing across different state lines and other chapters that come around. We also have a social weekend, which collaborates with the maids in order to just have everybody reconnect and get to meet people from across the country. Well, with the boat cruise, the Sons of Pericles, and I'll say on behalf of the Supreme Lodge, are incredibly excited to be going with the Delphi chapter, because for so long, I have just considered we should be collaborating, we should be showing up, we should be accepting the support, and we want to show that we are one AHEPA family. And to be able to come on the boat cruise and be able to converse and connect with the Delphi brothers and everyone from District 6 and anyone else who may be coming across state lines or different districts, it's going to mean a lot more when I have prospective members, new sons, or veteran sons who are just enveloping themselves in the AHEPA family. So we're incredibly excited for this boat cruise. And frankly, I always love collaborating with Delphi. Everything you guys do is a peach with a cherry on top. It's beautiful. So thank you for having us.
Alec, where are they coming from? In other words, what states are some of the sons or maids coming from? Can you share that?
So most of the demographic of which we've received, our furthest one would be Tallahassee, Florida, which is where Paul Pavlakos and I once hailed from as our son's chapter, 334. The maids of Athena from Tallahassee have already booked it. Otherwise, most come from either Montreal, the Northeast. So Boston will be bringing teams. New Rochelle will be bringing teams. Possibly District 5 and District 4. We've had people from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, outside the Philly area come. And we may be seeing Cherry Hill on the other side of the river, as well as Trenton to come and attend, and Holmdel. So it's mostly a Northeast-centric event, but we still have people from across the East Coast and other areas like Chicago that will be coming in full force.
I'm glad to hear that, because for the audience who doesn't know, I'm also a Delphi 25 member. I was the former president and also the governor, AHEPA governor of District 6. That event is a fantastic event, by the way. We've had so much fun. I mean, we stopped it, unfortunately, during the COVID time period. But bringing it back, especially with the sons and maids coming on board, is going to be a very exciting thing for us, because there's nothing more important than multi-generational activities, okay? And nothing is better, quite frankly, than having a lot of fun, a lot of food, dancing, etc. So I think it'll be very exciting. We're so pleased to have you on board with that. Let me talk about a couple of other things. You also, if I'm not mistaken, the Sons of Pericles also erected a monument in Greece, in Messaloniki. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're correct.
Tell us a little bit about that, because it's very exciting, and I'll explain why in a second.
I would have to defer more to Paul, because I know he had spearheaded that with Greece 200. While I've been scouring these yearbooks, I only know that it's dated in, I believe, the 1930s, but I believe we had fundraising in Missolonghi. Paul, if you could expand on that.
Yeah, that's right. So it was 1938, and the yearbooks tend to get a little less detailed in the early ages, so we have a little more later. But 1938 was essentially, it's an interesting background, which we're still digging into to find specific details. But from what we can tell, it actually seems that, so AHEPA had its own excursion to Greece annually around that time. And at that point, the excursion to Greece wasn't what we would know now as, your 9-hour flight, essentially. This was a 2-week boat ride over to Greece and back, right? So this was a true excursion in every sense of the term. And so AHEPA had their excursion, and then in 1938, so this would have been probably 9-10 years after the AHEPA's first excursion, the Sons of Pericles also had an excursion over to Greece, either part of the AHEPA or as their own, and they stopped at Missolonghi, and they fundraised and they erected this monument, and it was to really pay tribute to the fight of the Greek Revolution in 1821. So that's how we ended up covering it as part of the Greece 200 committee. But the monument is there. It's in Missolonghi. It's in one of the parks in Missolonghi, and it's still there. I actually plan on visiting hopefully this summer.
What type of shape is it in, Paul? What type of shape?
So the last time I've seen pictures of it was maybe a year and a half ago. It seems, I mean, they keep up with it. It seems you can still read all the inscriptions and everything. It does get kept up with. So
does it need any cleanup, any work on the monument?
We can find out.
Why don't you find out? Because the reason why I'm bringing it up is that this year is actually the 200th anniversary of the fall of Messaloniki. Okay, so I think it becomes very powerful for something to take place with regards to that, and certainly some type of ceremony for the sons, etc., to have in Greece itself, if you can, or at least get the sons in Greece to participate in it. And because I think it'll be a newsworthy event, and when I say this year, I'm talking about next year. I'm talking about 2026. And I think that you should not only have it with the sons, but you should raise the issue, obviously, with the AHEPA also. And if there's anything to be done with regards to the monument, it should be done prior to that ceremony I'm talking about, so it could become a big deal. Because, the fall of Messaloniki, was an international event. And as a matter of fact, when it fell, it really galvanized people around the world to also get people to help Greece in its struggle for liberation. So I think that's a tremendous object that you can have. The other thing is that just to mention it to you guys, is that next year is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And for me, I think, and for you, of course, those who were raised here, born here, it is a big deal, okay? Because one of the things that we always talked about was always that we are Hellenes, we are Americans, we're Americans of Hellenic descent, So this, I think, has to be a priority, in particular on the 250th anniversary of the United States. And to the extent, that I will be the chairman of the New York parade, the New York Greek Independence Day parade, the largest parade actually in the world outside of Greece. I think it's important for the sons and the maids, the sons and the maids, to have a float in that parade. And basically, since it's also your 100th anniversary that year, to make a big deal out of it during 2026. What are your thoughts about what I just said?
I think both those ideas are great, Lou. I'm glad you bring them up. I think in terms of Missolonghi, real quick, I think it's excellent timing because we've had actually a resurgence in Greece activity for the Sons of Pericles. Is it 3 new chapters, Alec, in the last few months?
Yes, 3 new chapters: Vari, Vula, Vouliagmeni, Athens, and Thessaloniki.
So with that new membership, I think we'll definitely have boots on the ground to be able to get something going for next year.
I think what's interesting about the new membership, and I think it goes back to Nick, because in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but a lot of the young people that became sons, their fathers and or families were involved with AHEPA itself. Am I wrong on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. And the AHEPA is still an organization that is in all of these communities that we do not have Sons of Pericles in today. And that's why I've said to myself and to others, and I'd like to get our sisters, of course, the Alex and everyone else that is involved, Paul and so forth, because I feel like the southern states are really a sleeping giant, because the sons have been put on pause for some reason or other, and while the AHEPA has been maintained in most of the areas and doing some excellent work with the affordable housing and many of the other scholarship programs and so forth, we still have a Sons of Pericles scholarship fund, even though we don't have a chapter here. So it's very important that I hope that we can emphasize reactivating the Sons of Pericles in District 1 in particular. That would be the 2 Carolinas, Georgia, and Alabama. And if we could do that, there will be so much more emphasis and their input could be put into these particular programs we're talking about with the monuments and other situations that occur. So, yes, I think that there's workforce to be done there, but by the same token, we'll need to put a special emphasis on new chapters so that we can bring in these young men who can once again carry out the purposes of the Pericles.
I think Nick and Alex and Paul, I think that that it's not only the southern area that is having issues with the sons. I think other areas in the United States have the same issue. And the reason why I brought up AHEPA and father to son relationships, and to the extent that Alec mentioned that you have all these youth chapters that are springing up in Greece, that's because their families or their fathers or whatever are basically asking their sons to join the Sons of Pericles. And I think to a certain degree it has to do with leadership, with the various districts. leadership to promote the Sons, which in the past, when you analyze, and Paul and Alec, maybe you can speak to this, but in the past there were thousands of young people who were members of the Sons of Pericles. Am I wrong on this?
No, you're correct. I've been checking these books and finding membership statistics to about 1,700 to 2,500 at certain peaks. I do believe that an AHEPA chapter is a huge proponent of creating a Sons chapter. I mean, Nick, for an example, you had joined because of word of mouth from your brother who encouraged you to join. Lee Millis, the second oldest living past Supreme President, had joined simply because his parents were in the Daughters and AHEPA. It becomes a generational thing where you do not want to let go of something that really is firmly entrenched inside of you. So to be a part of this organization, which is kind of a feeder program for AHEPA, it should make no more sense than it already does to simply join this sandbox of the Sons, learn the responsibilities and the capabilities, and run with it. We have had some activity in District 1, Nick. I'm happy to tell you, Adelphi 86 in Atlanta has reactivated, and they are growing as we speak. Almost new members and almost half dozens almost every month. Recently, Providence as well. But Lou, I'm a full proponent that there should be more collaboration between the AHEPA and the Sons. When there is an AHEPA chapter that is so receptive and supportive, it just brings the Sons to new limits. And we do see that pay dividends, as we'd seen with Providence or Atlanta, for example.
Well, what was fascinating to me, because I had an opportunity to go through your website and just check some of the past supreme presidents of the Sons. And what was interesting to me was the names, because many of the past supreme presidents of the Sons actually became leaders within AHEPA. Some of them became obviously supreme presidents of AHEPA. Basil Besouidis, was a past president of AHEPA, and now has been the executive director there for a number of years. So I think that I'm not exactly sure, and this is not to say anything negative. I'm not exactly sure what national AHEPA has or the districts have been doing with regards to the Sons and the maids, but I think a lot more can be done, because what was indicated, as you both indicated, that was the feeding ground for the AHEPA, for the Daughters of Penelope and things of that nature. And I think that's something that easily could be revised. If you can, explain to us in terms of that conference that you're going to have, or that 100th anniversary, who is actually invited besides Sons and maids and all that? Who's invited to that particular event?
Oh, the simplest, shortest answer is everyone. Anyone who's had skin in the game in the AHEPA family. We want to emphasize Sons alumni. We want to emphasize past Supreme Presidents, past district officers, but anybody who had any involvement in the Sons, it's welcome. We're a Greek organization, and we should be encouraging to allow anybody to join. So we really want to open the door for anybody.
Have the notices gone out? Have the notices gone out for this coming event, or not yet?
We'll send those in a few months over the summer. We're just finalizing a couple more details. We have to save the dates ready to print. Those will start going out.
Okay. Have you picked the venue and all the rest of that, or not yet?
Yeah. We're finalizing details on the set. Friday night venue, I can say for sure we'll be at the museum. Actually, we'll be doing a cocktail hour and the unveiling of the Sons of Pericles exhibit, which we mentioned. Yeah. Saturday night, we're still finalizing just one more detail. That'll be released shortly, and that'll be where our gala is.
The material that you talked about in terms of bringing to the museum, was it purely from the Manchester area, or was it from other areas also?
So it'll be from other areas. I think as long as it has some history in terms of the founding of the Sons of Pericles. So it'll be earlier history, so that it keeps the Manchester connection. It'll be mostly Manchester oriented, but we have found, for example, I was able to find the original copper printing plates out of a manufacturing warehouse in Pennsylvania for the printing press for the Sons logo and the past Supreme President's badge. So we'll be putting that into the exhibit most likely, and then we're still collecting some things as well. We'll be spending the year collecting some items. And
you mentioned an event in Philadelphia, I think it was. Explain that event if you can again.
That'll be the AHEPA Supreme Convention in Philadelphia, and then as part of that, we're going to make sure that, as that'll be the capstone essentially to the centennial year for the Sons of Pericles, we'll make sure that during that week there's
I see. Great. Any questions from any of you to any other panelists?
Let me just add this, if I might. I agree with this program of this type, and possibly if we could encourage AHEPA to take a active interest in a Sons chapter where they do not exist today, especially in the southern states, then we can see a great return on our investment there. And it's just a matter of getting it started, because we've seen what daughters have been able to do in certain places like Mobile, Alabama, where they have this particular ladies with the difficulties, and they got national recognition for it. The same thing could be applied to the AHEPA agendas, so that each one of the chapters of AHEPA that do not have a Sons chapter, then let's encourage them to establish that, and automatically everything will pick up and go, whether it's scholarships, anniversaries, or whatever else, and it will take place once the AHEPA has got that particular activation going.
Very good, Nick. Thank you. Small question for everyone. The age bracket for the Sons membership that was mentioned before, and there was a change to that. Is that a problem today? In other words, there was a reason for the change to increase the age of the Sons that was mentioned. Is there a consideration, any discussion on that by anyone here?
I'll start first. I don't think there's a problem. And my justification has to be with that each chapter is its own little parea. It has its own different age range. It has their own group, people who grow up together, one another. I will say, and I'll go down the history of the age range, for example. In the 80s, we had a lot of turbulence with the age range. It used to be at 25 in the 70s, and AHEPA had truncated it down to 23 and had all these 24 to 25 Sons members automatically join AHEPA, therefore nullifying the remaining years that they would have otherwise had. Their arguments back then were pretty sound and true. Just the generation of growth. Now, it'll be tough to justify this and explain, because I want to keep it simple. And Nick, you may be a testament of this as well. So the Sons' age being 14 to 18 and then rising 14 to 23, it started making sense with World War II to accommodate for people coming back. Well, the argument from the 80s was that you're not only taking away these 2 years that we had already had otherwise, but people's lives are different in this generation than the past. Whereas a lot of people would just not go to college and get a blue-collar job, these people are actually going into greater education, going to universities, and they're using more of their time, which gives them less time to work in the Sons. So having this progression from 14 to 28 within your own group really creates a stronger bond throughout your whole tenure. And it also gives you still enough opportunity of, after achieving everything you did with university, which has become commonplace in the Greek American household, to graduate with a degree, people are then able to take the initiative and jump into these leadership responsibilities, just as I had the moment I graduated with my master's at Florida State. I hit the ground running and went to Supreme Lodge, and I haven't looked back. I'd love to keep it open to just.
I think the age range also is a testament to the pipeline, really. So we were building a pipeline in terms of mentorship and professional networking, right? Of course, it's about community, but from a professional perspective, it's about finding people that are going to be mentors that also share your values, and having that wide age range has actually been very successful. It's a similar thing that AHEPA does on a grander scale with, let's say, young professionals and successful established professionals mentoring each other. The Sons almost has a mini pilot version of that, where the 15, 16-year-olds in high school are often asking for the college students' help in terms of college admissions. What should I be looking at? Here are the schools. Can you read my admissions letter? Once you get in, what should I major in? Which classes should I be taking? I remember being in law school and having one of our undergraduate brothers come and just shadow me in one of the law school courses. He was interested about coming to law school. So he just came to the law school and sat in on one of my classes. I couldn't give him advanced credit, but he got to see what was going on at least. So, this is something that I think is important when people are looking to join an organization like this is what are they getting out of it, frankly, is yes, they're giving back to the community, but the tangible benefit of the professional networking, I think, is something that large pipeline for the Sons from your high school age to the young professional age really does give. And then, of course, you'll matriculate into AHEPA, and that mentorship continues throughout a lifetime.
Yes, I like the idea of the extended age because following World War II, I believe at that time it had a 21 a year, and most of these young men were veterans, and they couldn't exercise this the Pericles after 21. So by enlarging that age, that has expanded our perimeters. So that I think that even though you might not utilize it to the fullest extent, at least it's available so that we can work within those confines.
That's fantastic. So are you all bullish on the growth of the Sons going forward? Are you all bullish?
Absolutely.
Very much.
I feel great. I think we're in for a lot of change in the next few years.
All right. This has been a fantastic discussion. What I'd like to do is just wrap it up a little bit and just get some final thoughts, if we can. We'll start with Alec. Some final thoughts on this panel discussion.
I think everything discussed in this panel is fruitful. If this helps inform or recruit someone to the Sons, I just want to share one thing, and it's something I've been reading in so many of these acknowledgments in these books that have kind of been ringing true to my heart too. With the Sons, you get as much as you put in, you know? It's essentially what effort you give to this organization, you're going to feel fulfilled from it. You're going to have a once in a lifetime experience that you'll never want to take back. It's something that honestly has changed the course of my life. I was a college kid at Florida State who had no idea AHEPA remotely existed until one day a cute girl tapped me on the shoulder and told me to join a Greek club. And what am I going to do? Say no? No, of course. And since then, I've had the time of my life. I've had an amazing experience of just growing these skills from public speaking to delegating to even just taking action where it mattered the most. And I credit the Sons for everything that they have done to help shape me into the man I am today. So if there's anybody out there who's listening to this, whether it's a parent or an individual whose son's eligible, you have to give some serious consideration to giving the Sons a shot, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You got all the time in the world to join AHEPA, but the Sons, the hourglass is still ticking. So make the most out of it and put in exactly what you want to get out of it.
Thank you.
I hope that you will. I hope that you will pass on forward to me the name of any person that has a doubt about the benefits of the Sons of Pericles. I would like to be the individual to try to make the case, because this is an outstanding organization, one that places service above all.
Nick, some of your final thoughts regarding this particular panel discussion and the Sons. Some final thoughts.
I personally have enjoyed my little bit input for this particular panel, and would like to distribute this, if we could, to other chapters throughout the nation, especially the ones that need to be energized towards activating the chapters of the Sons.
Absolutely, it will be on YouTube, and we'll get you the connection, Nick. And thank you so much for being with us today. You really added a lot to this discussion, because we have young people, but also just the depth of your knowledge in terms of the Sons, their history, is just amazing. And the fact that it affected your life, your political life, is very important, and should be important to everyone who's listening. Some final thoughts, Paul?
Sure. I just want to circle back maybe to the point you made, Lou, about the 250th of the United States, right? So because one thing we are doing with the campaign is we're emphasizing that the Sons of Pericles, it's of Hellenic values more so than it's even of the Hellenic community. And those Hellenic values are American values. Even in the bulletin I was reading from 1928, calls the Sons of Pericles an American institution, not a Hellenic institution. It's an American institution.
Exactly.
Over the years, we've seen a lot of Philhellenes join the organization. It's something we were very proud of down in Florida. About half of our membership in the Sons of Pericles were Philhellenes, not of Hellenic descent, just people who share the same values as us. And so that's what I want to impart on the audience and everybody else as we move into the centennial campaign, is that when we say we're open to everybody, we are open to everybody. We're open to everybody who shares the values, everybody who is interested in the culture and the history and part of building that community.
Well, thank you for adding that, because AHEPA and the Sons originally were always about Hellenic people, but also Philhellenes. That was an extremely important thought process within AHEPA as an American organization. AHEPA, sons, maids, daughters, these are American organizations, and that should not be forgotten. Also, the welcoming of Philhellenes, because as you say, the greatest attributes of Hellenism are in fact American values. These are American values ingrained in us. And I'm glad you also brought up the thought, that I mentioned earlier about the 250th anniversary of America. To us, to me, it's extremely important. The 250th anniversary of America is a direct link between the people, their philosophies, Hellenism, all the rest of that, with the founding of this nation. In the 1820s, when we had the Hellenic Revolution, it was in America. It was in America that sparked an interest in what was taking place in that small country that we now call Greece. The fact that they were having a revolution, the fact that they looked upon the American Revolution as something extremely important in their particular revolution, and the fact that Americans here had in their history what was known as the Greek fever or the Greek fire during that particular period, where hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of people in the United States were part of Greek committees that formed to raise money, to raise supplies, to send clothes, etc., into Greece, and even to have Americans go to Greece to fight. For example, Samuel Gridley Howe, who was extremely important in the Hellenic Revolution, was also extremely important in the Civil War. He was a major abolitionist. Miller, Jonathan Miller, again, an abolitionist, someone who fought in the Greek Revolution. George Jarvis, the African-American slave from Baltimore, Williams, who went and fought also in the Greek Revolution. So this linkage between the nations, we cannot forget. And in this 250th anniversary, and in the coming anniversary of the Sons of Pericles, the 100th anniversary, it is extremely important to create that link between the Sons, America, and Hellenism. It's extremely important. So thank you all. It's been a great honor, my honor, to have you with us today. For the audience, in a couple of weeks, we will have another panel discussion. This one is going to be related to New Orleans, and it'll have to do with the Hellenic shipping and cotton merchants and the first Greek Orthodox community, which was established in New Orleans. So again, thank you to the audience, and thank you to the panelists for discussing this great institution, this great organization, and we welcome everyone to join into it, and we welcome everyone to listen, as Nick said, to the video, and this is a welcoming organization, and congratulations to you, all of you. Nick, congratulations to you with regards to the Sons in the past, Alec and Paul, to the current Sons, and also to AHEPA, Paul. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you all.
God bless.